Welcome back. I'm one of the developers working on Dwarve. It's a tower defense dungeon crawler RPG, and you can wishlist it on Steam now, so please do. So I've got a typical pixel art crate here. Let's use some advanced techniques to make this look amazing. First of all, I personally don't like it when there's an outline on the bottom of an object. If it touches the ground, I don't think it needs an outline there. Okay, so the next thing we can do is some really basic shading. This top part, since it's getting lighting, should be lighter. Now it's getting a little bit of form. I personally don't like having outlines in the inside of an object. I mean, the point of an outline is to be on the outside, right? And usually I reserve black for separating parts of an object. However, we can still use a really dark color on the inside. I'm just gonna go ahead and make this a dark brown. So for the top part, I'm gonna make it a dark brown as well, but it's still gonna be lighter than the dark brown in the bottom part because this is still getting lighting. So this looks pretty good, but I would also remove this line right here. And the reason is because with the line being there, let me show you real quick. With the line being there, it almost looks like two different objects. It almost looks like the top part is a lid. Like maybe if you were doing a chest, I would keep that line there. But since I want it to look like one object, I don't want to put that black outline there. It really emphasizes a separation of objects. So let's remove it. We'll keep that there as a reference. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is add some highlights. A great place to do a highlight is right here on the edge.
Oh, nice.
If you've watched my furniture video, I really go into this. Now, don't put highlights everywhere or in random spots. Really kind of pick and choose. So the edge is an obvious one, but we could still maybe do a couple other locations. For example, the corners might be a nice highlight. You can even make them a little bit bigger. Let's just do that, like this. Sometimes for objects, I like to put the highlight all the way around, and that still looks pretty nice. But in this case, we're just gonna put it in the corners like that. The pixel art program I'm using is called Sprite. Please click the link in the description if you're gonna get it, because if you buy it through Humble, I get a tiny kickback. I'm not sponsored by them. So another good location for a highlight would be down here on this piece of wood, since we want to give it some form. The contrast there does look really high. Something I like to do is grab the color that I put that on. I'll grab this brown and I'll go to about 50% opacity and I'll click it right there. And now we're blending the two colors together. Now the highlight doesn't look so strong. And if we want, we can do it again. I still think it's kind of a high contrast. There, now it's a little bit more subtle. So I wouldn't put a highlight on this top piece right here though, because we basically did give this top piece a highlight. It's this yellowish one right here. The next thing we can do, I think, is some shading. So a great way to shade is right under pieces that stick out. So for example, this piece of wood, I'm gonna make it a tiny bit darker. By making it just a tiny bit darker, it really looks like it's indented. Actually, I'll go even darker for that. And the same with this upper part. This piece of wood in the middle, I think we should make it a little bit darker. That's not enough. We can always look at the preview to see if it's enough. Now the middle piece looks like it's a little bit in. Okay, now let's add some shading. For this, I'm going to create a new layer. You should often create layers for a lot of stuff. I'm just kind of lazy. So now that we have, I'm going to pick the color black, and I'm going to pick the locations where I want there to be shading, and then later we can go and adjust the opacity. So right here under this wooden piece, I would add some shading, and then a great place to add shading is in the corners. If you've watched my stone wall video, remember that in the crevices, that's where you want to darken the colors a little bit, and it'll create a nice shading. You could even put it here and here, and maybe even across this entire piece up here. So for this next part, I'm also going to shade most of these lines because the shadows would travel down a little bit. I don't know if that made sense, but check this out. When we lower the opacity here, you'll see why I did that. You see the look that it created? And we can really see that it now looks like there's light shining from above, which is casting shadows on pieces that stick out, that are protruding. This really gives your crate form. All right, now let's do one of my favorite pro techniques, which is to add shading to the outline as well. So as you can see here, the top part of the outline, I lightened it, and that really gives it a sense of lighting. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people like you. You can explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. I was excited to find a lot of videos on topics I'm interested in, like pixel art, Unity, and C# programming. If you want to get better at drawing, I recommend Brent. He really helps you hone in your skills and goes to show you that drawing is not just a talent, it's a skill you can develop. Skillshare is less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, and the first 1,000 people to use the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. Okay, so I'm going to do a simple version of the crate again to emphasize some of the techniques. This one will have less detail, so it should be easier to follow. So here I'm just going to create a square. And now to make this square look indented, you add shading at the top, on the top. You see that? And then let's just pull these lines down. This one would actually be here. And now let's add shading to this part as well. And the shadow here. You see how it looks indented now? And then we can add a highlight near the bottom right here. So also highlight near the top right here. So for this, we want it to look like it's indented as well. So we would shade the top right there. And then if you wanted to, you could add a highlight right there as well. I don't think I will because, so just adding this shadow on the side makes it look like it indents in at the top. You can also add it on the sides as well. If you do add it on the sides though, I would make that top one even darker, like so. Now I'm just adding some highlights in the corners. And since I'm adding highlights in the corners, I might as well add it on this bottom, on these, add the highlights in the corners on this bottom as well. To have the top match the side, I'm gonna also add 2 lines here. And now you can see this is a little bit simpler than the previous one that I did, but it has the same techniques done to it. Okay, so here are some crates from Dwarve, and as you can see, they use those techniques, but it's pushed to an even higher level because there's a little bit of texture added to the chests. Be careful with texture though, because you can overdo it and then your artwork will just look messy. It's okay if you're not the best with texture. Just follow these techniques and slowly build on top of them, and your artwork is gonna look like you just went from noob to pro. I'm adding these sprites to my free sprite pack. They're gonna be free for you to use in your games. Don't forget, I have a free art asset pack on itch, and you can follow me so you know when I update it. Link in the description. I hope that helped. Practice it with a bunch of other objects, and I'll see you guys next week. DevLife! If you guys want to support the channel, I've got my own clothing line called Panic Pop. There's a link in the description. I totally got to make Pixel Pete merch like DevLife or something, right? But that's for another episode.